Would you like to learn a brand new and innovative way to invest your extra money that has a low barrier to entry and low competition? What if I told you that it is a guaranteed method to get up to 18 to 20% return on your investment? Tax lien and deed purchasing is the only way to get into the real estate market through the back door. No credit and no loans needed. This method isn't commonly taught, and therefore the competition is very low, for now. Put together a 14-hour info-packed course which will teach you everything you'll need to know to get started. Learn at your own pace, step-by-step guided video and aids to start you on the TLC deed investment process. The course offers many learning tools for new investors, helping ensure you safely invest in tax liens and deeds. Contact us today and join the buyback team.
Welcome to Primetime Home Buyers, the buyback team. And today you're on a special episode of Secure Your Energy. So, we have been talking about the process of how to sell your home, building on property. Today we're going to get into the intro to understanding leases and also, hold on, there's leases we're going to be doing in the next 2 weeks. I do apologize. Hold on, we're going to be doing leases as well as rental agreements, okay? So I said, let's talk about what's going on in the rental market. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about what was going on in the home mortgage sector, where we know the interest rate is through the roof. Home prices are inflated. The common person is locked out the market. That common person is actually the landlord in many cases. So today we're going to be talking about evictions on the rise in several states in the United States, the concept of landlord versus tenant, who's really the winner in the end. We're going to get down and dirty today and talk about it from a perspective that y'all won't even think. Y'all know last year is going to always come from a perspective of, really a community-based understanding, okay? And then at the end, if anyone would like to join the live, you can join the live. We dropped the StreamYard link in the comments. Shout out to our Facebook page, our Facebook group. It is growing. I do want to say, Facebook family, if you have any questions and you post it in the group, please make it a whole question or a whole sentence. I try to answer your questions, but if it doesn't make sense, I can't answer it. So please be concise. I don't judge, me having a little touch of dyslexia. Everybody has their own way of learning. That's why we talk to everyone on their own level. So don't be afraid to just, express yourself, but please try to make it make sense at least. Okay. All right, so let's get it. Today we're going to be getting into what's going on in the rental sector in the United States. And what caught my eye, really, it was because of this particular post that I saw on Instagram that I'm going to share with you. You guys know that I'm in Atlanta, right? So I did, I get a lot of feeds from Atlanta, things that's going on around here. And this is actually a place that I know of and have went to. We used to be a braiding salon here. So an African lady gets evicted from her store in Decatur. Now, I don't think that this is one particular spot. Oh, then we're going to let that be on mute. I don't think that this is one particular store. I do think that it is a majority of the stores. So I'm going to go down there and take a look myself to see. But obviously, you can see all these stores in the back. It looks pretty empty, except for the United Dollar store, which is probably empty as well, because a lot of storefronts are being closed because of online selling, especially after the COVID. A lot of business got equipped for selling things online and making things automated. And pretty much a lot of businesses staying in that same wavelength, okay? They're going with the times, with AI. So this is what really, really sparked this. I'm like, wow. People are really in a hard situation. So we talked about the rent memorandum. We talked about some renters' rights, landlord rights in earlier broadcasts when we talked about law and where to go find some of this information, the difference between federal law, state law, and also the county regulations. So some of these things play a part in the eviction process. So as we go down the yellow brick road of this subject, we're going to be more formal in other broadcasts, but we're going to do PowerPoints. Okay, so those PowerPoints is going to basically highlight some things that landlords have to be aware of. We're going to go through that today. We're going to do a talk through. And there's some things that actually renters can do to help themselves in these particular situations, because it's a two-way street. You know, I'm investing in real estate, but I definitely understand the position of a renter and being in a bad situation. Okay. So let's show you a few clips. Homeless population across the United States is on the rise, Wall Street Journal. So I wanted to start with that because when we talk, I'm going to talk about homelessness and also kind of reference to what's going on with immigration, because this is going to play a major part in our livelihood as Americans, people who are already here, people who have invested, paid taxes, and all of the above. So let's get it on the screen. Hold on one second. Let me make sure I got it. I want to make sure I got it. I hope you guys are having a beautiful Monday. I'm grateful for you guys being here with me. I'm happy we can have a Q&A. I hope you guys participate at the end of the live. I'm looking forward to answering some of your questions about tax liens and tax deeds, whatever you want to ask me. I am open to answer today. So let's go.
On the streets and in shelters across the U.S. increased significantly this year. That's according to a review by the Wall Street Journal, which says ending assistance programs put in place during the pandemic is contributing to the rise. Shannon Najmabadi is with us now. She is a Wall Street Journal reporter, and she worked on this story. Shannon, thanks for joining us. Talk to us about what you discovered in your reporting for the Wall Street Journal review.
Thanks for having me. My colleague John Camp and I found that the number of homeless people counted on streets and in shelters this year across numerous cities and regions is broadly higher than it was in past years. And if the trend we observed holds true, the U.S. could see a sharper climb in homelessness this year than in recent years when there were smaller reported increases. The way we reported this story is that we reached out to numerous groups called Continuums of Care. There are hundreds of these nationwide, and they basically go out in January and count the number of people in their region's shelters or who are unhoused, living on the street, and report that number to the federal government, which reviews it and then publishes an annual report around December, about a year after the count is complete. And so we were able to receive 150, now more than 150 of these reports from Continuums of Care about what they're seeing in their region. And we found that across the vast majority of them, they saw an increase on past years. It is two caveats. It's important to note that this data is preliminary, of course. It also is imperfect. It's very difficult to count the number of people that are unsheltered, living in cars, couch surfing in the woods or on property that's difficult to access. That said, it is the best count we have, and it is the underlying data the Fed uses for its own report.
There's a lot of focus often in the news with sort of West Coast cities, San Francisco, when we talk about homelessness, which is why I think this reporting is really important, because what we're seeing is that it's not just, a handful of cities, it's across the board. That being said, you still don't have data for New York City or Los Angeles. Once those numbers are thrown in, what could this look like?
You're right. New York City and Los Angeles will have a significant impact on what the U.S. sees overall. Just for context, in last year's count, more than 1 in 5 of every homeless person counted came from one of those two regions, New York City or Los Angeles. And by comparison, we got data from about 150 Continuums of Care, and they constituted 43% combined of people counted last year. So 150 with 43% versus 2 with 22%. So they could have a market impact on what we see nationwide when they finally do release those numbers.
So what did you discover is, from your understanding, the main cause as to why we've seen this sharp rise in people without homes?
One of the main things that people that work with folks that are homeless or teetering on the edge of becoming homeless said is that they are hearing quite a lot from people about the effects of pandemic era protections running out. combined with a very tight housing market. So these are things like the eviction moratorium ending, emergency rental relief going away, extra funding that cities and regions got during the pandemic running out. And they're really seeing that in the populations they're working with, where someone maybe had a voucher and it ran out, and now they're being priced out of the market and maybe they were pretty close before and are now falling into homelessness. That said, there are a number of reasons why someone could become homeless. Some of the other things that really affected counts this year that we heard from folks are that maybe they changed their methodology. They were able to go to new places and conduct counts. For example, San Diego saw a pretty large increase this year compared to past years. And they said that at least part of that was due to the fact that they could go onto state transportation property, like the land under overpasses and so on, to conduct the count, which they hadn't done before. And on the flip side, some regions said they saw more or less people in shelters because they either added shelters during the pandemic and then lost those beds, or just added them and were able to keep them, so they were able to do a more thorough count than years past. In some places, sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done.
Some places also were affected by an influx of migrants who were counted in the general shelter population, even though they aren't traditionally what you would think of as part of that population.
Now, that is very, very important. That last thing she talked about, the immigrant population, I think that's playing a really, really big role as well in the homelessness crisis. Now, we're going to kind of get to that. But getting back to some of the things that she said, some of the common issues that was going on, not only did they do a pseudo fix, what they did, I believe, by giving people all of this money and, giving them the stimulus, it was a pseudo fix, and we knew it was a pseudo fix. Instead of actually doing something to fix the economic situation, for say, having programs that not only shunt out money, but actually educate people and put them in situations that they're able to start businesses, have creative ideas where, we're doing more things online, but creating programs that the human being will be able to do instead of all of these automated programs. A lot of money went to automation, as well as a lot of the funding that actually got trickled down. It didn't totally go to the small businesses. It went a lot to the larger companies who utilize that, and the hospitals who allegedly utilize that to fix their actual businesses. And I saw that in real time, where a lot of hospitals after the pandemic was actually adding units, upgrading, doing things. And I'm like, okay, we still don't have people who work here. Where are the human beings to actually do what we need to do? So the mindset of what our economic system is in America is a real issue. If you think about it, this capitalistic mindset that we acquiesce to as regular citizens and say, oh, this is just the way it is, and we participate in it, is actually enhancing their ability to do that to us. Does it make sense? If you go to a store and something is inflated and you decide not to buy it, and we all have that mentality where I'm just not going to buy that. It doesn't make no sense. I can do without it, because that mentality that they have, that the more supply and more demand they have, they're going to increase the price. If we don't participate, they cannot increase the price. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna throw ideas out there, but I'm gonna throw a little fix it, because these things that we have to do, everything that I talk about pretty much is going to come from a grassroots perspective, because there's no one else that's going to fix these type of things. So we have an increase of people living in cars, tents, and this is the first time I ever heard of couch surfing. This situation is really starting to hit our next generation right now. I was just talking to my daughter and her friend, and they just happened to be talking to each other about the seriousness of possibly getting an apartment. How would it actually happen? They're like, man, I possibly have to be living with my parents for how long, because of inflation and the cost of rent and what the average American is bringing in. So that's one of the first things we have to really tackle, is financially, what are they doing to sustain the average person so we can pay rent? then start to get a cap on the rent and the mortgage. Okay, I know I'm kind of just running into it. I have so many ideas tonight. It was like once I started researching a little bit about what's going on with the rent, I was like, well, this is going to be a corny topic tonight. But then it was like just like a flood of things came into my head, and it's like, wow, we're really in a seriously bad situation, be it you a landlord or a tenant. Okay. So now I have another video that I'm going to share with you guys. This one, eviction on the rise in several U.S. states. This is the new data. Another video. This was 6 months ago by CBS News. So I'm kind of like, you know how I'll go from month to month. The first one was about 9 months ago. We're going to kind of work it closer to today's date, but I want to let you see the progression. But this is not a 9-month progression. This is a over time progression and systematic setup. I really think it's a systematic setup because we're going to be in a situation as Americans where we can't afford to live by ourselves, even let alone buy a home. And then the chances of you actually being able to buy a home is going to be so hard because of the competition and because of inflation is going to continue to go up. Okay. We're going to talk about why I think inflation is going to continue to go up, because they need somebody to pay for this influx of immigration as well as the funding of what they're doing with our money. And that's the war. Honestly, we have to start preparing people. This one subject made me like, oh my God, this is not the time for this to still be progressing so bad.
Help keep many families in their homes during the pandemic. Those are now long gone. And new data says many Americans are paying a steep price. According to data from Princeton University, eviction rates in many U.S. cities have returned to or exceed pre-pandemic levels.
Oh my God.
More on this, I want to bring in Owen Minot. He is a senior policy analyst for housing and infrastructure at the Bipartisan Policy Center. Owen, thank you for joining us. So how bad is it out there?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So the first thing to know is that there's no federal database to track evictions, so our understanding of eviction trends is imprecise. Federal data tracking of evictions would be very helpful to paint a clearer picture. But as you referenced, the Eviction Lab at Princeton is one of the best sources we have, and they look at up-to-date eviction trends in 30 some odd cities. The bottom line is that data in recent months indicates that evictions are rising far above pandemic levels and likely meeting, if not exceeding, pre-pandemic levels across much of the country. The story here, as you referenced, is that during the pandemic, because so many people lost their jobs, the federal government took a series of steps to stave off an eviction crisis, and it worked. They instituted a moratorium on evictions, and Congress provided $46 billion in emergency rental assistance, as well as other COVID-related stimulus. This was highly effective at preventing evictions. Despite so many jobs lost, evictions during the pandemic were lower than pre-pandemic levels. What we're seeing now is that as those benefits faded, renters faced rising rents. Typical monthly rents increased by about 17% nationally in just a year, and it was a lot more than that in some areas. And that just makes it a lot harder for families to make payments and avoid eviction, especially as inflation raised prices for other household essentials. Due to a lack of data, though, and an uncertain housing market, it's hard to say for sure what the near future holds in terms of eviction trends. But what I can say is that there are far too many evictions nationally because we know that eviction is devastating for families. It's a driver of poverty that can force families into homelessness or multiple unwanted moves, and it can trigger a cycle of poverty that's difficult, if not impossible, to escape.
I find that very interesting. We talked a lot about the rents here in New York because, they're like, it's like bonkers.
It's insane.
Yeah, but that's what happened. Like during the pandemic, landlords were offering all these great deals and everything. And then post-pandemic, they didn't just like sort of resume where they left off. They made up for lost time, and suddenly the rents exploded, right?
Which it's hard to, it's so difficult, right? Because on one hand, I was just talking to somebody who was explaining to me that she is about to sell this apartment that she has. The current renters came in during the early wave of the pandemic, and she gave them a steep discount on the rent. Now she's saying to them, I'm going to bring it back up to pre-pandemic levels and even maybe even higher to make up for the lost time, as Anne-Marie pointed out. and the people are like, well, we're moving.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It sucks for the landlord, and it stinks for the people who are renting.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about the landlords, but I do want to ask you about just something else that the data is sort of suggesting, which I suppose should not be shocking, is that minorities are being impacted the most. And you pointed out how an eviction can lead to sort of a spiral downward. We talk on a regular basis about how many job openings are still out there, how bosses can't find people to fill these positions. Why is the data indicating that minorities are impacted the most by this?
Well, communities of color are going to face greater threats of evictions because they tend to have less intergenerational wealth to hold them through periods of financial instability. Because rents are so high, for a lot of families, those margins are just really small. So a single event like the death of a family member, a major medical crisis, or the loss of income, that's just enough to put you at the risk of eviction. And if you don't have, because rents are so high, it's really hard to save. And if you don't have savings, that's really going to make you more at risk for evictions. And again, families of color just have less intergenerational wealth, so that makes them more vulnerable.
So listen, and a lot of people are going to say, oh, but there were all these programs in place. People got money. They didn't have to pay their rent for almost like a whole year, year and a half. All those programs didn't work out exactly as they were sold.
Well, it took a really long time to scale up these programs. There was $46 billion in emergency rental assistance, and getting all that money out the door and scaling up entirely new programs was a really huge challenge. It was a major effort by the federal government, and it took a long time to, figure out verification requirements and build up staffing capacity. The thing is, though, it eventually worked, and eventually they got money out the door, and it really was helpful at supporting families. And now that benefit is going to go away. So we really need to, think about the future of emergency rental assistance, because it can be really helpful at staving off evictions, and could be, we have this opportunity. We've built up the infrastructure of all these programs, and it could be a waste to just let all of that go away.
All right, so let's just backtrack to what he was saying. Now, we know a lot of these pandemic programs that were going on, they were aimed to sustain us. As he said, I believe that some of them funding, a lot of that funding as well, went to actually just creating a program and putting it together. It took time for that to happen. And then he said some of that funding got out the door, because that's what they were saying. The numbers may be obscure too, because that was people's main thing. Oh, y'all had all of this money, all of this thing came out. But some people didn't even have access to it, or still was waiting for it. Okay, it wasn't easily accessible. But like I said, the ones on the top that was having the big hospitals, I'm going to say hospitals, other industries that were needed to stay open, they were able to access that money really, really fast. Also, another interesting thing he said, it's true. It's not only minorities at this point, but that is one of the main things that I stress. One of the reasons why it's not an equal playing field for minorities, because we don't have that generational wealth. And what can happen is one major event, somebody die, you get sick, you lose your job. Most of Americans, though, right now is actually 30 to 60 days away from being homeless. That's one thing that keeps me humble. No matter how good I'm doing or whatever's going on, I know that never know, you could be 1 month away from losing everything. You never know how much. Listen, look at Kanye West. He didn't lose everything, but he lost a good amount of his money just in a blink of an eye. So let's just keep that in mind, that no one is untouchable, and just as unstable as the society is unstable as you can be. Okay, does it make sense? So it's about being prepared. Increase of poverty, you know exactly what that's going to lead to. It's going to lead to 1, crime, 2, depression. Well, depression then crime, I think. Either way, it plays hand in hand. We already have an increased issue with mental illness in America that's not being addressed. I'm talking from an aspect of just putting the whole melting pot together. This is a serious discussion, guys. When I started doing the research, I was like, man, like I said, just rent. No, it's a whole lot of factors that plays a part in this, that is actually a domino effect that will put a lot of Americans in binding situations where we will have no equity in America. Equity mean land, gold, anything that's an asset. Everybody is losing assets right now. And this is one of the primary reasons why I constructed the program Primetime Home Buyers on how to invest in tax liens and tax deeds, because it's teaching you how to obtain one of the most major assets that you can have, a home, without actually being connected to the mortgage, without being connected to the death note. And it's so sad to say, because this is why a lot of people are in this situation. They're connected to the death note. So as much as the home interest rate is fluctuating and you have homeowners, I don't understand if you, well, I can say this. I was about to say, I don't understand why you will refinance in really, really bad times when you really can't afford the increased interest rate or the payments. But when you're in a situation such as the pandemic, such as the job switch, such as someone being really sick, bills that you got to pay, it's understandable. And a lot of Americans did that. This is why they end up refinancing. This was a big time where people refinance, because not because they wanted to, because the interest rates was good. It really wasn't, because when the banks had the zero interest rate, we still didn't have zero interest rate. Do y'all ever know that? When they said that the Federal Reserve was going to a zero interest rate, we did not have zero interest rate. Our interest rate went up. It created a profit margin for the people who already had money. Okay, I'm just being honest. Okay. 17% of national rent has increased. I just, it just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand where they think that the people getting the money from. That right there, I really don't understand where they think the people is getting the money from. And this is why, if you invest in property, you have to be honorable. I'm going to be honest. That's why if you invest through foreclosures, through tax liens, tax deeds, whatever you want to do, because I'm not just pushing one method, but I am pushing methods outside of the banking system. I'm just going to be honest, because that's where we're getting trapped at. Okay. And this is where you'll be able to get a more profit margin if you do that. Invest these routes. So if you do that, and we have more people who invest via tax liens, tax deeds, foreclosure, and get in at a lower rate, we'll be able to kind of change the tone of the rent, of how much rent will be, things like that. Only reason why our rent is so high is because who's controlling it? Who's controlling the tone? The bankers. It's true. It's not us. We're not controlling nothing. That's why it's such a dangerous concept, is own nothing and be happy. That we got to make sure that our younger generation know that they have to own. So Austin eviction notice back to pre-pandemic levels. I'm just going to show you a few different states. This is 6 months ago. So it's not just, New York. It's not just Democratic states. It is all over. And that's another thing I want to highlight. We are too political as a nation. I know people don't like that because y'all really politically driven, but the politics is what really got us in this situation. I'm going to be honest. Okay. The politics, and people working for profit and not for the people. Does that make sense? Okay. When you have a government that's working for profit, you have situations where industries such as banking industries are able to control the tone of society. And that's what's going on. And that starts with politics. That starts with being political instead of being community driven. Do that make sense? Like I'm not telling nobody don't vote, don't go do, what you're supposed to do, know about what your senators doing. But if you're going in as a political party and not for a particular stance and choosing individuals based on their stance or what you need done in the community, this is why we're in the situation that we're in. So we also got to take responsibility for some of the situation we're in as people in the United States, because we have gotten so political that we can't even think with common sense to come to a medium and say, yo, we are all about to be up shit's creek without that. Everybody who is middle class, and middle class is mixed with Democrats, Republicans, everybody, whatever you go acquiesce with, but it's the same situation for all of us. Okay, you got AI, you got inflation, you got the mortgage, the rent memorandum that is up, you got the courts that's flooded. We're going to show you that as well. Okay, let's get this one playing.
Well, eviction filings have soared to one of the highest numbers since the pandemic began 3 years ago. KV's Pamela Combe caught up with one Austin advocate about this trend and what we can expect in the months to come. Good morning to you, Pamela.
Good morning, Yvonne. Well, eviction notices and filings are up and back to pre-pandemic levels as temporary programs to help renters disappear and the cost of living in Austin goes up. Home renters, condo and apartment renters alike are all finding it difficult, or at least some of them are finding it difficult to make ends meet or meet their rent on a monthly basis. Now, I caught up with the executive director of the Austin Apartment Association, and she says in the last 2 years, over 28,000 rental units have been added to Austin. Growth in the market is one of the reasons why eviction filings are up. And while eviction filings have increased, the percentage of people getting evicted isn't too large. But Blair says evictions are, usually a last resort. Nobody really wants to get evicted, or the apartment doesn't want to evict people. Right now, she says we need to focus on those things to help prevent evictions from happening.
Looking at what those things are that impact affordability, operations of your property, because that's where we have seen unprecedented increases with costs just to maintain and operate the property, the same property it was 3 years ago to today.
One of the eviction protections extended past the pandemic includes the renter's right to cure. This passed in October, and it requires landlords to give renters a period of time to fix or resolve a lease violation before facing penalties like eviction. One other protection added last year will kind of close those loopholes that renters have and just give them more time, give them more of a notice to leave their home, so they don't have to leave immediately, but they kind of have a longer period of time to do so. It also connects these renters that have been evicted to city resources and services so they can find their next place to live.
That's what also we're going to get into. We're going to get into the rights of the renters, because renters are doing some things. Now, it's a two-way street to this. I got some stuff to show you what's going on with some renters and the crazy things they're doing, just to stay in the actual apartment. But they also have rights as well. And us as landlords, people who are owners, need to understand their rights and how to mitigate, how to negotiate, because like I said, I know both sides of the game, and I think you do too, being a renter and an owner if you are an investor. Okay. Let me see. I'm not gonna show that one. Let's see. Evictions are this is more. I just got more evictions on a pre-pandemic. Evictions skyrocket as rising rent squeeze low-income Americans. We're going to show that one. I found so many, it was ridiculous. I just took 3 down because I was like, it's going to be repetitive after a while. But let me just show you this.
Now that the pandemic's renter protection programs have expired, eviction filing rates are soaring. Princeton University's eviction lab says that in some cities, the average weekly filings are more than 50% higher than they were before the pandemic. One reason is the rising rents and a shortage of affordable housing for those with the lowest incomes. The National Low Income Housing Coalition says that to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment, someone working a 40-hour week needs to earn between $16 and $42 an hour. That's much higher than the minimum wage in most states.
Thank you. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't even make any sense.
Diane Yantel is the CEO and president of the National Low Income Housing Coalition, which is an advocacy group. Diane, is this rebound or surge in evictions, was this inevitable once these protections went away, or is there something else going on, other factors going on?
Before the pandemic, we had about 10 million of the lowest income renters who were paying at least half of their very limited incomes towards rent just to keep a roof over their heads. And of course, when you have such limited income to begin with, you're always one unexpected bill or financial shock away from missing rent, facing eviction, and in worst cases, becoming homeless. But the federal government stepped in really in unprecedented ways and provided protections and resources that kept millions of renters stably housed who otherwise would have lost their homes. But just as those protections were expiring and those resources were depleted, renters were re-entering really a brutal housing market where Rents were skyrocketing and costs across the board had increased. And the lowest income renters are being squeezed more than ever. I'm talking about people who make less than 30% of the area median income. So, for example, that's a family of four bringing in less than $25,000 in annual income, or it's an individual senior
Ridiculous.
or a person with disabilities who has a limited $12,000 to $15,000 a year in income. So they have very little available to pay for rent and have enough money left over for all of life's other necessities. And it's people of color who are most impacted and most harmed by the housing market. Black, Latino, and Indigenous people are disproportionately extremely low income rent.
I want to say this. They keep pushing that narrative that is just minority. If you feel like you're not a minority and you're not going to be affected by this, wake up, because it's affecting everybody. It is not just a minority thing. We have a lot of people who have become drug users, and those drug users are in this particular situation as well. There's a lot of factors that put people in this situation. So I just want to highlight, because they keep saying minorities. We've been in this situation, but across the board, I think when they set the tone, when they say minorities, it separates people to believe that, oh, nothing is going on with my people. You know what I'm saying? And then you end up in a bad situation too. Okay, because a lot of you in a bad situation, you're feeling it the same way. Because when I talk to my people who were not considered minority, they sound just like me, trying to cohabitate, pay the doctor's bills. They're in between taking care of their parents and the kids and the grandkids, everybody trying to cohabitate. So I just want to clarify that, because that subliminally puts in people, oh well, the blacks is in different situations. No, we're all up shit's creek without a paddle. Okay. All right.
Renters due to decades of systemic racism and ongoing discrimination in many systems. And so they are disproportionately likely to be evicted or become homeless in our country.
And obviously becoming homeless has a big impact, but also even if they aren't evicted, just getting that eviction filing against them has an impact.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. Just a single eviction filing on somebody's record can create really a spiraling down into poverty that becomes very difficult for that family to climb back out of. It becomes more difficult for them to be able to find decent apartments and landlords that will rent to them. So they often are led to communities with lower performing schools or higher crime rates, which has all sorts of associated costs and challenges for that family, for the community, and really for the country.
You talked about how the pandemic protections sort of protected against that shock, and it was the pandemic that was the shock. Could in any sense that be a model for safety net programs for renters who do get that shock because of a medical bill, because of some other factor?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the emergency rental assistance programs that were created during the pandemic are a success story. Congress provided $46.5 billion in emergency rental assistance. And with those funds, communities created over 500 programs across the country to quickly get cash into people's pockets to pay the rent and stay stably housed. So we absolutely should make this program permanent and permanently funded. Keep this infrastructure that we built throughout the country, build off of these lessons that we learned, and continue to keep people stably housed into the future.
We need to create some jobs that's going to pay us more. I'm going to be honest. We do need control over the rental price as well as the interest rates, but we have to be paid more as Americans. Okay, that's the bottom line. I'm going to be honest. All of this putting a Band-Aid on it, literally what I'm hearing, and I thought I never would say this. Now I understand. This is the beginning of socialism. It is. Because everybody, look, let's check this situation. I'm going to talk a little bit before I go into how rent has changed over the years in Manhattan. let's think about this. Okay, we have a situation where we have a mass influx of migrants that's coming in. Okay, what that goes to say, not only is the shelters are jam packed, but we have police stations that's jam packed. They're trying to take parks and recreation centers to change them into migrant facility for these people to stay. On top of our own national homeless crisis and drug pandemic that's going on, it is a pandemic that you're seeing with the heroin and the fentanyl. People are living under the bridges. You're seeing it as being the social norm with the tent cities. They're all over. Okay. Now, just imagine this. You have the government. That's why I said this sounds like it's going to turn into socialism if people like me and you don't get a grip on what's going on and try to gain some assets and get a foot on the economy and really get a hold on it. If it's a good amount of people who get a hold on economy, get a good amount of assets, we can turn this around. But back to what I'm saying, this is just a hypothesis, and I'm praying that it's just a stupid hypothesis. Just imagine, okay, now we have an influx of migrants that comes in that needs these social programs now. Where are they going? Where are they putting these people? They have situations where they're trying to lock them out of the shelters that they even put them in. So they're petitioning for money, and these programs are going to be funded by what? They're going to be funded by me and your taxes. We are already at a high tax bracket. One of the things that I talked about a couple of months ago was allegedly Georgia, just the state of Georgia, not the whole United States, not the feds, but the state of Georgia, thinking about making a 30% consumption tax. Okay. Just to allegedly put, how can I say, make the people feel better about the increased taxes on just the taxes we pay. They're like, it's just a 30% consumption tax, but that's on every single thing you buy. Bubblegum, sneakers, paper, a hat, shoe, 30%. I don't think that that's a good fix. Under the guise that they need more taxes to create more programs because we have more homelessness and we have an issue with things like this rent issues. We have an issue with creating shelters. We have a job crisis allegedly. Now, that's another thing that we got to keep in mind. We have this alleged job crisis that's being fueled by AI. It's being fueled by AI as well as lack of education, as well as our youth not wanting some of these jobs. And a lot of our adults, Americans, this is like, I don't do that. So they want to bring in other people who will do that. Does that make sense? I was just talking to my daughter about this. I know I'll be hypothesizing. Just what if? My imagination just go real far. So now they're increasing the taxes on us just to create these programs for allegedly us and the influx of migrants. But we still are not nationally at minimum wage at $16. You know that we're not. I think that's what it's supposed to be, or 15, guys. Am I right? Am I wrong? Bunch of us, especially in Georgia, they still got people at $7.25. Don't even know how people can sustain their life with that. Okay. So now they have these programs that we have no choice. Are you noticing on your feeds, on your commercials, on your when you watch your Facebook, Rumble, all these places, YouTube, it's like, do you want free money? The government has subsidies. And I'm like, my daughter was listening. She's like, is that a scam, Ma? I said, listen, I think that they basically enroll you in a program where they give you discounts and say that it's worth money. But then we have these programs that's offering government subsidies where you can take that money and apply it to certain places, but you have to comply with the subsidies program requirement. It's just like being on welfare. I understand because at one point I was on welfare. Okay, that's why I talk from this perspective because I've been there, I've done that. And when I was on the assistance before I was in nursing school and everything, it was terrible. First and foremost, they wouldn't even help me with the school I wanted to go to get that high paying job. They would not help me with nursing school. I had to do my own thing. They will only give me food stamps. Okay. And that's about it. And a little bit of insurance because I wouldn't participate in their program the way they wanted to. But guess what type of programs they had? They had secretary programs, not business administration. Allegedly, it's business administration. You were just learning how to be an office secretary. They had those type of positions that wasn't high paying positions, which would have kept me in the rat race. Okay, because even if when I got those positions, I probably was still at a certain point that I needed the government assistant, in which I couldn't make but so much money, or the government assistant was going to be taken away. So I myself understand like socialistic programs because I was in one. I'm a product of one, but I pushed myself out of it. It was very hard to do so. It was very, very hard to do so. And I literally had to work under the table to make money doing hair to make sure that I can get this type of funds that I needed. This and have my own. I'm just gonna be honest, because I wouldn't have been able to survive. But now you have most of our system becoming automated. So you don't have a lot of room to make money under the table. Does this sound like a socialism like system coming together? Am I just thinking too daggone much? All of this stuff flowed in my head when I did this little research on what's going on with rent in America. I said, things are getting bad. Okay. So on top of having those type of programs that's going to keep you at a socioeconomic level, now you have most of your money automated. What situation does that put us in? Huh? I know I went deep diving on that, but I really had to just kind of like go in just a little bit so you can see how one leads to another and how we're kind of in deep doo-doo if we don't make some systematic changes. And it starts with our mentality. It starts with the level of what we teach our kids, like what we embed in them. We have to pull them away from the internet. We have to force them to read. We have to force them to get in the positions of the jobs that most Americans don't want, like building houses from scratch, like laying pipes down, being plumbers. Raise your hand if your kid want to be that. Raise your hand if you got children and you know that they want to do something that's going to sustain life. I mean, really, like electricity, like dealing with being a plumber. We need plumbers. Those type. It is rare right now. Do you see where we're going? So now you have it. Okay, let's get back to the immigrants. Now we have an influx of immigrants who have certain skills, certain abilities that Americans don't have or didn't even want to have. Okay, right? Now that is being shown, and many people will not like this. This is being shown in Florida, where many TikTokers were showing that construction was at a halt and has been very slowly productive in Florida because of the political policies that are put in place to keep people divided. And we all poor. All them people in Florida poor. I don't care. Y'all know y'all ain't rich out there. Okay? If the tourists wasn't coming in, y'all be in deep doo-doo. But then they have the divide and conquer. That's why I say when they keep talking about, the black people, what about? No, it's all of us. They keep playing that divide and conquer to make you think that you're not in the same damn situation with us, but you are. So now Florida, you see their productions of homes are low because guess what? Do you have a high rate of any Americans in Florida that love doing construction? I mean, I'm not talking about the engineers or the people that's telling the construction workers what to do, because 9 out of 10, you know who they are, who has those positions. But who's doing the work, the physical work? Those are the migrants. So when all of that racial stuff start going off, they literally start messing up the economy in Florida. You see how politics plays a role in this nonsense and how we really don't need to acquiesce to the division. We really have to look at the policies for what it is and how it will affect us on a macro level. I mean, not just you, not just how you feel emotionally, not because you hate somebody's color. Because I told you, it's okay if people want to live with the concept of separate but equal. That's fine. I don't got to go to your house. You don't got to go to my house, but we got to respect each other because we're all on this same diaspora right here, which is America, and we have to stick together. And we literally have our government officials who playing war games, and we don't even know, God, we're not even ready. Okay? I promise you, my mind went to the left today, okay? That's why I said, let me have a question and answer at the end, because y'all may want to get in on this conversation, because I said, I'm just... Now, I'm going to close off with a little conspiracy thought. Tell me what you think about this. We have an influx of migrants coming in. I'm not going to show this on this broadcast, but I do have a broadcast called Uncensored Enlightenment Talk where I show these clips. And allegedly, a young lady, she was talking to a migrant, and he was saying he got money because he wanted to talk to her. Okay. And he was like, I got money. I could take care of you. And she's like, what the hell? And she ended up taking a picture of the car because he was like, I got a car. I got money. And she's like, what the hell? It was a black car. He's like, I got a black car. She took the picture. She went in. She did some investigation on it. And allegedly, based on this TikTok, because I will be showing it on Wednesday or Friday, it said something to the nature of student national soldier. And I'm going to leave it like that. We don't even know who's coming into this country right now. We have to figure this out. Okay. All right. If y'all want to add anything on to that part right there, let me know. I got the link inside of the chat. If y'all want to come on the StreamYard, y'all don't have to show your face. Y'all can come talk. We can kind of talk about this. Y'all can tell me like, last year going to the left. That's not virtually possible. America's going to save us. Or you can come with something logical and say, yeah, I think we got to come up with a plan and start talking about some real stuff. Okay. Whatever you want to do, you agree, you don't agree. It is what it is. I just want to have this conversation that many of us not having because we're so into propaganda. We're so into propaganda. We're so into division. We're so into who's this and who's that we're not realizing that we're all of Schitt's Creek without a paddle. How rent has changed over the years in Manhattan. This was 3 days ago. I told you I'm going to start bringing y'all up to date because something's happening. Something's happening.
The cost of rent, right?
This is not funny.
It's not.
Really
It's
not.
I mean, there's some good news here. The cost of rent in Manhattan has dropped from its record highs, but still remains far above pre-pandemic levels. The median rent in September was $43.50, which is a $50 drop, just a $50 drop from the record high in August, but it's still higher than September of last year and more than 24% higher than September of 2019.
That's crazy.
Right?
That's
when you think about the overall, this is all according to the latest rental market report from appraisers Miller, Samuel, and brokerage firm Douglas Elliman. The authors note renters likely won't feel any meaningful relief in this sky-high rent, that $50 reduction this fall. They won't see it.
In that same report, it also revealed that Brooklyn rents are up 25% year over year. So sometimes it is unsustainable. And it is a huge factor when you talk about all the other things that we're paying more for with inflation and all the jacked up prices for all the different products and services that we use. So it's a real strain on a whole lot of people, and it makes it tough.
I mean, I'm glad that it didn't go up by $50, but it needs to go down by a whole lot more.
It needs to go down by a whole lot more.
Because landlords are also cutting their concessions. So maybe they would give 2 months free, and now maybe
there was a time.
Month, and so things are
That is a lot. That's the average price of $4,500. What are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with $4,500 rent? That's not even your own house. That ain't even a possibility to own from the bankers. That is ridiculous. I wanted to show you this article. Hold on, if it let me show it. It's about Airbnb squatter who stayed for 540 days can't be evicted because owner doesn't have proper permit reports. Don't get yourself in this situation, guys, because then you have this type of situation where you do try to cohabitate or you do try to make some extra money, but you don't know the law and you haven't did your stuff right, and then you end up in a situation like this. Okay, hopefully I can get on the screen. I hope everything is going well. So it's black. You see it? Hold on, guys. Having a little issue here. Yeah, you see it on the screen? Okay, here we go. This was 10 days ago. Airbnb squatter who stayed for 540 days can't be evicted because owner doesn't have proper paperwork. And that's what's going to lead us to our formal live next week at the end of this week, where we talk about lease agreements, constructing lease agreements, and rental agreements, what to know for owners and renters. Okay, we're going to do from both sides. You know, I go deep into detail so everybody can play fair. Okay, he said, I can never go into my house and know that I'm safe when a potential hostile person is living there, and said homeowner Shasha Javinick. All right, a California dentist is locked in a legal stalemate as a Airbnb tenant has spent 540 days as his guest home. He refused to leave unless she is paid $100,000. The judge says the host has no legal reason to evict her. Oh my God! What? All right. So her name is Shashka. 61 says he has lived in fear for his unwanted tenant Elizabeth, who has continued to reside rent-free at his $3.8 million property in Brentwood even after her 6-month stay was scheduled to end in April 2022, according to Los Angeles Times. I can never go into my house and now that I know that I'm safe when a potential hostile person is living there. Jovanovic, this sounds like an Indian name, told the newspaper, I think about it all the time. I bet you would. I'll be pissed off. Who has lived? Okay, so it says Hishran, who has lived in Jehovah Wick guest house overlooked Los Angeles for the last year and a half, has argued she has the right to stay there, the outlet reported. Her attorney, Colin, said Hushstone Horn has not have to pay rent because, as provided by law, the unit was never formally approved for occupying and rental containing an permanent shower. So what was it? They wasn't supposed to be there. The landlord broke the law and tried to make money by renting out an illegal bootleg unit. So it wasn't supposed to be there. Oh my God. I could see this happening to a lot of people because they're going to be trying to make money. You can take a little closet and be like, that's a room. You won't never be able to get that person out that room. Y'all better be careful. Y'all better be careful. So after he was caught, instead of doing the right thing, he has resorted to bullying, harassing, and filing a frivolous lawsuit containing elaborate false stories, all in an attempt to cover his tracks. But I would assume that this guy is getting fines too for having someone in a place that's not livable, because that person's not supposed to be living there. Because that happened to me in Jersey too. I got a story about that. Okay, been through it. Okay, according to the Times, Hawkhorn qualified for protection under the Los Angeles new rent stabilization ordinance because she has stayed at the property for more than 6 months. Know your law. Know what changed. This is why we have a law seminar, y'all. Y'all will literally just get a place, put somebody in there, be like, just give me the money. And then they end up being in a situation like this where you're spending thousands of dollars to continue to maintain the place, or you're going to get fined, possibly still getting fines because you don't supposed to have the person in the unit. I can say that from a situation I was in where a gentleman, it was like a four apartment house, two on that side, two on this side, and then he tried to make a basement apartment, and I moved in there thinking that it was okay. Man, when the city came, they was finding him $1,500 a day every day that I was in there. That man wanted me out so bad. It ended up working out perfect for me because I ended up moving in an apartment. The apartment ended up getting robbed the first night. Like, they set me up, y'all. This is how bad it's getting. I know poverty. So that's why I'm like, y'all need to get prepared, because you don't understand poverty. You don't understand the mindset of people when they become, they get privatized. I have went through this, trying to be righteous as well. Literally rent the apartment that I was not supposed to rent. And he had some people who, were under the influence that fixed the home, saw me moving in. All of a sudden, the hot water wasn't working. Dead of wintertime. Guess what happened? Guess what ended up happening? I had to leave, go to my mother's house with my 2 kids. By the time I came back the next evening, all of my electronics were stolen. everything gone. Okay. Poverty, bad situation. But it ended up working out because he put me in a unit that I was not supposed to be in. You see how God worked? I tell you these stories from knowing what happened. And he ended up getting fined $1,500 a day for having me there. So he ended up having to pay me. First, he was like, "I'll pay you $3,000 to move out now." I said, "Pay me $4,500 and my moving fees, and give me my deposit back." And he was like, "Okay, just get out." I ended up leaving out there with like close to $7,000. I was like, "Whoopee! God be the glory." So, I mean, tragedy turned a good situation. But what I'm saying is that as a homeowner as well, people who are going to cohabitate together, this may not be a good idea just to go down the route of Airbnb allegedly and say that it is without doing legal paperwork, knowing your city coordinates, your state law as well, because you're going to find yourself in deep doo-doo. Okay. So I wanted just to show y'all that. Because I've been talking about cohabitating, come up with some good ideas. Yes, we got to come up with some good ideas, but you got to think it out. We got to think it out. We have to have a full-fledged plan, and legally, you got to do things correctly because they're going to try to use it against us. Any way to get more fines from you, get you in trouble. It's sad. I think like this, but I have went through this. They will find you. They will fine you and penalize you. Okay. So, Fulton County, this is the last thing I think I'm going to get to. Oh, wait. Look at this. It says, "I own a home, but I'm still being evicted." Let's watch this one. This was 8 months ago. This is going to probably be the, hold on. Before we do that, let me show you this. I'm trying to say which way I could do this. All right, let me show you this. This is what I'm going to show you guys. This was something interesting that I found, because what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to be sharing more information with you guys as renters of ways what you can do to protect yourself. Okay.
Pay the apartments and they quote unquote drop it, and you just go back to regular life living in the apartment.
Let's do it again, bro. Let's do it one more time.
People do not know this, but when eviction is filed on you, and y'all agree and you pay the apartments and they quote unquote drop it, and you just go back to regular life living in the apartment, no ma'am, no sir. You need to go back to the court, get a release of judgment, take it back to the apartment so they can sign off that this amount was paid. You take it back to the court, and the court will take that civil judgment off of your credit. That is keeping a lot of you from getting an apartment or anything, because it looks like you owe a property and you wondering like, how are they saying I owe them and I still stay there? It's because they once filed eviction, y'all settled it out, but nobody did the release of judgment.
Thank you. Now I'm gonna pause there because my tax liens and tax deed investors understand that. That's like a lien being put on you. So you have to go and get that lien taken off of you. This judgment that's in the system for eviction is equivalent to a UCC filing being put on you from a mechanical lien or a lien from a contractor that you didn't pay. Okay. That is literally the registry. And unless you retract that document and have them sign off, you pretty much are represented under that situation. Does that make sense? I wanted to share this first little sneak peek with you guys because I'm going to do a formal live on how to challenge evictions. Okay. Yes. They like, girl, why you telling them that? You supposed to be the landlord. Yes, I am. But as the landlord, I need to know what they can do and what I can do. So that's how you play chess, not checkers. You can be honorable and you teach the truth, but you need to understand how to maneuver. So at the end of the day, as I told you, the landlord versus the tenant, we're all 30 days from being homeless. I'm just letting you know. I just had to say it like that. We're all, no one's special. You're not better than no one because you own a little piece of land. You literally can lose your land tomorrow from eminent domain. How about that? Okay. That's how humbling situations can make you. I have been in so many situations that continue to make me humble. No matter what I get, I don't get, I have to remain humble because it always was a situation where I was up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. Well, not without a paddle. God came and saved me because I researched, I learned, but I was always up Schitt's Creek. with something going on. All right, so that is a little sneak peek of what you can do as far as getting a release of lien off of your rental eviction. Even if the person wasn't evicting, that formal filing is there. So let me see this. Let's get into this is the last video that I want to share with you. And then if y'all want to get into a question and answer session, we can. I invite y'all to. And I'm going to, while I wait for people to try to get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about oversight of landlord and tenant issues. I mean, not issues of things you should know. All right, let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. I'll probably be up here for an hour and a half. It's the first time we doing a secure your energy so long, but it'll be okay. I wanted to try something new, do a first question and answers.
Nobody's here is a criminal.
1 in 20 Americans live in mobile homes or trailers. Many of them could face eviction at any moment.
We already knew that we couldn't afford to go rent or live anywhere else. Why should we have to go rent when we own our home?
Investors all across the country are buying up mobile home parks, and these new owners can choose to drastically increase rent or repurpose the land without warning.
You're talking about families and you're talking about elderly that
when the nation gets poorer.
My mom didn't have to rely on the government for housing. If they move her to a place where she has to pay $1,300 rent for a 2-bedroom, for the rest of her life, she needs government assistance where she didn't before.
For low-income residents, there is often nowhere else to go.
What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And the guy puts a hot water heater in. He said, "You're going to take that with you?" I said, "What street corner am I going to put it on?"
Now, I'm showing y'all this too to let y'all see that what they saying ain't totally true. Where they keep saying, "Oh, it's minorities, it's minority." It's really not. It's everybody. Let's watch this.
Would you still go to your job if Amazon sent you a paycheck every 2 weeks? Because there's a little loophole on Amazon.
When Alondra Ruiz Vasquez and her husband bought a home in Periwinkle Mobile Home Park in Central Phoenix, they had no idea that they could be forced to leave. Many of her neighbors have lived in their mobile homes for decades.
Everybody has their own little space where we live. This is our home. We own it. We own the mobile home, but we don't own the land that it sits on. I just don't feel that we could and we should go rent somewhere where we own a home already. But unfortunately, the truth is that we don't own the land.
More than 70% of mobile home residents own their homes, but they still have to pay rent for the lot they sit on. And when rent prices spike or the parks close, residents can't just up and move their homes because mobile homes aren't really that mobile. They can cost thousands of dollars to move them, and they might even fall apart if you try.
When we bought the place, we thought it was never going to be taken away from us. We were thinking we're going to be here many, many years.
Grand Canyon University, or GCU, bought the Periwinkle mobile home lot 6.5 years ago. But residents were not served a notice to vacate the land until April 2022. Alondra and her husband originally moved to Periwinkle to be closer to their volunteer soccer club, which serves refugee children in the neighborhood.
This is my kitchen. We have a bathroom over there and we have 1 bedroom. But these kids, they're really special to us. They are from Burundi and they are refugee kids here to the United States. And they are members of our soccer club. When their parents became homeless, they were evicted. We were able to bring the kids here. We've been able to help a lot of people.
Many residents in the park worry their only option will be to live in the streets. Alondra's next door neighbor, Jerry, has no idea where he will go.
Good to see you. You scared me the other day.
I bought this place when I was 55 years old, so it'd be the last place I have to go for the remainder of my life. So it was 28 years ago. I'm 83 years now. I'm in and out of the hospital on kind of heart problems. And my doctor said if I'm stressed, when I told him what the problem was, he said, try not to stress out over it. It doesn't matter whether I try not to or not. I wake up in the middle of the night and
it's stressful. Oh, he gonna make me cry. That's stressful, y'all.
that's what I do. That's all the night.
Oh,
What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? They treat us like we're non-existent. Why the government don't step in and do something about this? Fight for us.
They not.
I started to worry about.
They not fighting for us. They fighting for wars. This is terribleness.
Jerry. because I know I had a solution. I know I have family or friends, but I don't know where Jerry would go. I started to worry about my neighbor that lives right in front of me. She's a single mom, and I started like losing sleep and staying awake at night, just thinking, about the families that live here.
Phoenix has historically been known as one of the most affordable major metropolitan cities in the US, but that seems to be changing. For over 2 years during the pandemic, Phoenix suffered from the fastest growing home prices in the country. And even before
this called gentrification, y'all. Y'all thought that it was only happening to the Black neighborhoods. This is what gentrification looks like. Everything that they're doing through the pandemic, they did the test trial on Black people with gentrification, okay? Literally skyrocketing the area where there are lower income homes for people who can afford it by bringing in big companies that are renting at very high prices. This is what the world is. Well, this is what United States is feeling. The mass process of gentrification. It's not even based on color.
Before the pandemic, 100,000 households couldn't afford their rent.
But we have a lot of mobile home parks here in the city of Phoenix that is currently allowing low-income people to have affordable housing. They've been paying rent for years and years. They've paid their property tax on this as any other homeowner.
This is Pamela Bridge, a lawyer with Community Legal Services. In January 2023, the Phoenix City Council authorized a $300,000 budget for the firm to provide assistance to mobile home tenants at Periwinkle and 2 other parks. But they are not permitted to represent undocumented residents who are often the most vulnerable to housing insecurity.
But we are getting mobile home calls every single day at Community Legal Services from different mobile home owners and tenants who are worried, who have been getting notices. We are seeing the same situation over and over again of the increased rents or the landlord who's deciding to sell. I think a lot of out-of-state investors think that they can do great business in Arizona. And that's what we're seeing, again, not just in the mobile home world, but like throughout all types of property owners.
In October 2021, the average rent in Phoenix reached nearly $1,500, which is triple what some residents pay in mobile home parks. Carmen Prieto is one of these residents. She lives in a mobile home park called Weldon Court in North Phoenix, where she owns a 2-bedroom mobile home. She pays around $500 a month in rental fees. But Carmen and her neighbors were given an official deadline to leave.
Buenos dias. Buenos dias. I've been living here for 11 years at this mobile park, and it's been, like you see it, friendly. A lot of people don't know what to do, especially if they have 6 children, 5 children. They got to get a 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom? Can they really afford that? Trailer parks is only $500 because we own our trailers. We paid off our trailer. We bought it cash.
Carmen receives around $1,100 a month through Social Security due to disability. She first moved to the park because it was the only rent she could afford. But now she can't relocate her home.
Mine's a 1973 trailer, and they won't be able to move. They already said it.
1973, that's an old trailer. You see how people making money off of these people? And now this is like eminent domain for trailer parks. So they're feeling this same situation where you have people who are selling the land to big companies, and this is increasing the rate of homelessness as well.
They won't be able to move.
Due to federal housing regulations, mobile homes built before 1976 often aren't eligible to be moved. In fact, any mobile home built after 1976 is technically called a manufactured home. But among residents, the name didn't stick. Even if you are allowed to move your home, it can be prohibitively expensive. Arizona offers some relocation funds for mobile home residents being displaced, but it often isn't enough to cover moving costs.
And to move it, it costs $7,800 of their pocket that they help with the state. But it costs us more to move them. And the bottom of the trailer, you move all these sidings in the bottom, and then they have tires. See, this is the hitch. The hitch is already on there. I never took it off. I think if we move it, it's going to be destroyed. It'll fall apart.
Wow.
Carmen's daughter, Patty, says park management and city officials didn't provide information about Arizona's relocation fund in Spanish.
You don't have no papers for us in Spanish, and you say you want to help us. This is clearly majority Latino people here. With those forms.
And he
The Arizona Department of Housing is not legally required to inform tenants about the relocation fund, but they say they have bilingual staff available to assist tenants who contact their office. Still, Carmen says that she and her neighbors only received the original letters from their landlord in English.
They see me in the streets or they come to the door and they ask me clearly, what does it say? I had to translate it to them.
While it isn't illegal to only provide the documents in English, it makes it much more difficult for tenants to understand their rights.
Then it felt like this monster is targeting these people that don't understand what's happening because it's not in their language. I think it's our community in general that is, first of all, we're not informed of our rights. And secondly, in fear that's in the back of all these people's mind, like, oh, they're just gonna call the immigration and round us all up and just shoo us to Mexico. How do we fight that?
All right. So this is what the immigrants are facing that's been here, as well as you so particularly in this video that was a white senior man. Do not think that white people are not going through this. What happened to me? Oh, I had to reset. That's why I got to see my whole background. Hold on, guys. Let me just zoom in my camera. I'm like, why y'all got to see my whole bookshelf and everything? Hold on, Bose. Oh, there we go. I'm trying to be professional, but it had cut out on me. So in this broadcast, we basically showed you from both sides, from the landlord and the tenant perspective, how we are affected by this rental crisis, inflation, immigration, and everything above. Okay. The Monk 1987, thank you for subscribing. I thank you for being here on our live. If you have any questions, as far as questions related to anything we talked about, or you want to jump off the subject and talk about tax liens and tax deeds, I will be open to doing so on Mondays, on every Monday when I do informal lives, or whatever day I do informal lives. I'm going to make it my business to drop the link for StreamYard. You guys can jump on the StreamYard. Y'all don't have to show your face. I will be able to just talk to you guys and let the audience hear what you have to say. But basically, we're going to wrap it up. It's been 1 hour and 15 minutes. This Friday, what we're going to do is follow up with a formal PowerPoint live related to this particular information. So what we're going to do is how to address tenants overstaying in your apartment, the notices that you have to give, some of the options that tenants can do and what they do to kind of dodge the bullets. So challenging court orders and evictions. We already gave you a little sneak peek on one of the suggestions, and that is filing to get the actual rental eviction off of your record, because that is very damaging. So we're going to talk about that, general ways you do that. Where do you go? How much time you have as a renter? And the reason why we need to know this too as landlords is because we have to be honorable. Friday I will be on YouTube. I'm trying to stream on both still. So yes, I will be on YouTube on Friday. If I'm not on YouTube Friday, we'll definitely be on Rumble. I want to thank you for being with us tonight. We're going to follow up on Friday. We got a lot to offer. Please, if you have any questions, Facebook, put your questions up there. I don't mind answering them. I don't even mind giving you a link, but it has to be a full question so I can really answer it correctly for you guys. So I appreciate you, and I thank you for being here on our live tonight. And I'll see y'all guys on Friday. Y'all have an amazing, amazing week. Hopefully I can get this thing to work properly. See you on Friday.
The real estate market often seems like a distant world where only an elite of experts is successful. In a time of so much uncertainty in the air and bad news, realist investing can seem intimidating. But today, I want to tell you that if you make the right decision today, you can enter the real estate market from the back door. Bad credit record? No credit at all? Do you dread the idea of having a home loan? Do you dream of owning investment properties? You are in the right place and right time, because we have created a program which is a tax lien and deed investment online course of only 14 hours. This course is specially designed for people like you who have big dreams. You will learn at your own pace and everything from your home computer. This is your chance. Join our membership for $19.99 a year. What are you waiting for? Visit our website, primetimehomebuyerBuyback.org, and sign up today for course access.